Today we're going to learn about moving multiple files into different directories and some different command line techniques that you can use to manipulate locations of files as well as the actual files themselves. So we'll go ahead and change directory onto the desktop. There's a handy feature on the command line also where it's called tab completion. You type in the first few characters of the folder that you want to get into, and as long as it's unique, Python can, the command line can recognize that, and when you press tab, it will fill in the rest for you. So I can do change directory onto the desktop. I used tab completion for that. Now let's go ahead and create a folder. mkdir for make directory, and we will call it files1. So now to show you, this just generated this little folder on my desktop. Let's go ahead and make another directory, mkdir, and let's call it files2. So files2 was also created. Let me drag it into the screenshot zone. So now we have these two different folders. There are multiple things that we can do now with these two folders, particularly when it concerns files. Let's go ahead and change the directory into the files1 directory, files1. Now, unfortunately, with tab completion on this one, it won't recognize because it's all the same until 1 or 2. So tab completion does not work on this. But we can change directories into files1, and let's go ahead and create some empty files. These will be text files, and the way that you can create empty text files is you type the command touch. So we can create an empty text file, touch, well, I guess it doesn't have to be a text file, it could be any dot whatever ending, or it doesn't even have to have a dot ending. The dot ending is just standard notation to indicate this is a file, not a directory. Most computers nowadays, I believe, have some sort of indication as to whether or not it is a directory or a file. But in this case, we'll go ahead and just keep with the standard notation. So we'll call this file1.txt. So now if we type in ls, there is actually a file1.txt inside of our files1 folder, which is where we are. pwd for print working directory, we're working in the files1 directory. Let's go ahead and create another file, call it file2.txt. We could create a number of files, file3.txt. Let's go ahead and create one more, file4.txt. Now let's go ahead and create some Python files with .py ending, and we could say touch, let's call it code1.py, and then touch code2.py. Go ahead and do that 4 times. Okay. So now if we list all of the files that we have, we've got a bunch of different things. We've got code 1 through 4 and files 1 through 4. Now let's go ahead and change directory back out to the desktop. You do that by change directory ... Now if we list everything that's here, we've got a bunch of different folders. Let's go ahead and rename files2. The way that you would rename a directory is the same way that you would rename a file as well. And you would say mv and files2. So that tells us that tells the computer we're going to move files2, but in the process of moving it we can actually rename it. Now this move command, right now if we don't specify a path, we could specify a path by saying we want it to go on the desktop and in files1. We could actually change it into files1, and that will put it in the files1 directory. We can also rename it by saying folder or something like that. And so that'll rename it folder and place it in the files1 directory. If we don't put a file path or a directory path, then we can just go ahead and move it to the desktop, which is where it already is, and renaming it in the process. So all this does right now, if we change it to folder, then it's just going to rename it to folder, and you should see that happen. So right over here, you can see that it just barely got changed to folder. And the computer also in the process left it on the desktop, but the command is actually a move command where you can actually move files around and folders too. So if we have our files1 folder and our folder, we can now move the files from files1 into the folder. Now the way that you'd probably do this in the graphical user interface is you'd open up this files1 and you'd probably just drag the things into your folder. But we're not going to do that. We're going to use the command line interface because especially when you're working with lots of files with different names and different things, it kind of gets a little bit, it can be complex to try to pull files from different locations and other things like that. So this is one way that you can do it. We'll go ahead and say we're going to move, we're going to change directory into the files1 location. See all of our text files, see all of our code files. We're going to now move all of our code files into the folder. So let's go ahead and do that. mv is the command for move. Now this is the very nice thing about working with the command line is we can now specify, okay, I want to move all of the code files, and then we're going to place a star and then .py. Now what this is telling the computer to do is I want you to move all of the files that look something like this. It's code, C-O-D-E, and then anything else after that, and then .py to finish it out. So I want to move all of the code something .py files into desktop/folder. I just used tab completion there. And that should work. So now if we look, we have no more code files. If we back out onto the desktop and then change directory into the folder, we can now see that all of our code files are in the folder directory. So that's kind of nice, that's useful. There are also different characters that you can use to specify individual characters. So for example, if I wanted to, we'll make a directory inside of the folder directory and we'll call it half, because we'll put half of our code there. So now we have a directory, it's called half, and we want to move 2 of our code files into the half directory. So the way that we can do that is we can say move, and then how about we do another one so that we learn something else. Let's copy. So copy is CP, and we could say copy 12343.py into the directory desktop folder half. So what this is saying is there are going to be exactly 4 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a 3.py file. There's some file in this directory that is 4 letters, then a 3, then a .py. And then we're going to move it into the half directory. So now if we take a look, okay, we still have our code 3 because we copied it, but now if we move into our half directory, we can now see that we've copied code 3 into that half directory. So let's go ahead and remove it. But let's actually remove it in a fancy way. And let's back out into our folder directory so you can see where we are. We're in code 1, 2, 3, 4 and our half directory. So we want to, let's remove the entire directory. Removing files is fairly standard. we could remove code4.py by just typing in rm and then code4.py. We look at it, we have removed code4, so let's go ahead and remove using rm and then the half directory. Now the way that we can't just remove a directory. In fact, the command line will give us this prompt. Half is a directory, so it says, hey, are you sure you want to do this? The remove function needs some added arguments in order to remove entire directories, particularly if they are non-empty directories. So as long as they have some file in them, then the computer needs extra commands to make sure, okay, yes, I want to go through with this and remove the directory. So we can say remove -r and then half. And what the -r stands for is it says recursively, I want you to go through and remove everything that's in half. And not only that, but if there are folders in half, I want you to go through those folders and I want you to strip those clean as well. And if there are folders inside those folders, go inside of those and delete everything in there too. So it's a way to just purge everything that's in a particular folder. And I think there might be one other argument we need to add. Let's just double check. No. Okay, so one of the other things that you can do, I'll show you. So it has removed our half directory. But another thing that can be useful but also dangerous at the same time, so be very careful where you use it, is you can type in rm-rf. And what that means is not only are we removing everything recursively, but don't ask me if I'm sure about this. We're just going to go through, and this is like me saying, yes, I'm very positive. I want to remove everything in there. So sometimes, for example, if our folder if our file wasn't empty inside of that folder, then the computer would have probably prompted us to say, are you sure about this? Do you want to go through with this type of a thing? And then we'd say yes or no. The -rf makes it so that the computer won't ask you if you're sure about that. So let's go ahead and back out onto the desktop. So let's make one more directory because I want to show another way of another useful thing that you can do with other files. So files, let's call this one file folder. Okay. So I'll drag this onto the desktop. You can combine the star and the question mark to actually do some very useful things. So for example, if we go into our folder directory, we can see we have code, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 letters, and then 1, 2, 3. Let's go back. Oops, go back out. Let's go into our files 1 directory, and so I've got file.txt. So let's say that we wanted to move all of the files that have a 2 in them into our file folder directory, regardless of whether they're a Python file, like a code file, or a text file. The way that we can do that is by saying move, and then we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. So because file and code both have 4 letters in them, 2, and then star. So we're moving all of the files in this directory into our file folder. So we'll move it on the desktop into file folder. Okay, and what we can do now is we can pipe this by doing the vertical bar and say move now from desktop and from folder. I want to move 1, 2, 3, 4 2 star to the same location. It will run these two commands at the exact same time. So desktop, I'm running out of time. I have 4 seconds. I'll finish this up in another video.